To all devotees and wishing everyone a very blessed Ram Navami today. I don't know what time it is in Minneapolis, but I assume if it's very early in the morning here, it should be in the evening at that moment where you're celebrating. I wish I was with all of you. It's been a while since I came to see and take your darshan, as well as to have your association. I'm actually in a room in Rajkot, Sri Sri Radha Nila Madhav Dham. We had a very nice Pushpa Abhishek program yesterday for Ram Navami in the evening. And I think I've lost my voice, so I'll just keep my voice as, as loud as possible. And also there is no Wi-Fi here. And we are just, connected to an iPhone at the moment, or at least a phone device. I'm just hoping, Krishna willing, that the connection stays. Like everything else in life, so many things are dependent on Krishna. In fact, everything is dependent on Krishna. So let's use the next 40 to 45 minutes together to try and remember some wonderful pastime, a wonderful episode from Lord Ram and Ramayana, which will be very helpful for us in framing our mind for this very wonderful and important occasion. Ramo Rajamani Sada Vijayate Ramam Ramesham Bhaje Ramena Nihata Nishacharachamu Rahamaya Tasmai Namaha Rama Nasti Parayanam Parataram Ramasya Dasosmyaham Rame Chittalaya Sadha Bhavatu Me Bo Ramam Uddharaha. This is a very beautiful prayer. It's a prayer of invocation to Lord Ram. Basically, what we are praying in this prayer is that we pray and contemplate and fix our mind at the lotus feet of Lord Ram. Lord Ram is considered to be the jewel of all the kings in the dynasties. And Lord Ram is always victorious. And one who is engaged in his worship, he or she will also be victorious. Lord Ram is the master and the Lord of Mother Sita. And there is no one greater than him. The prayer ends by saying that we are all humble servants of Lord Ram. And we pray that our mind will always meditate on his lotus feet. And we pray that Lord will always keep us in Krishna consciousness, in divine consciousness. So the important point for us to remember is that Lord Ram is non-different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. And that is why in our Sampradaya, Lord Ram is worshipped as much as he's worshipped in all the other parts of the world and by other devotees in Vedic culture. The greatness of Lord Ram, among so many other things, is that Lord Ram, when he was in this world, when he took the form of Lord Ram, he was known as Purushottam Maryada Avatar. Purushottam Maryada Avatar means one who is so exemplary in his conduct that even we can learn from him how we should live in this world. The pastimes of Lord Ram in Ramayana, they are very, very practical because they teach us so many things on how we should behave in this world. And because we are trying to remember Lord Ram in this wonderful festival, we should not forget that every festival where we can actually glorify the Lord, that festival has the great effect of cleansing our hearts of all traces of misfortune. So wherever you would have come from Minneapolis and today you have gathered together in the hall, the important thing for us to know is, as long as we are hearing the names of Lord Ram, and as long as we are trying to glorify Lord Ram, then whatever traces of misfortune there are in our hearts, the Lord himself, he will actually wash them away. This is very nicely given to us in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam by Shukadev Goswami. In the shloka of 12:12:48 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadev Goswami sings very nicely to Parikshit Maharaj. Sankityamano Bhagavan Anantaha Shruta Anubhavo Vyasanam Hipumsam Praveshya Chittam Vidunoti Asesham Yatha Tamo Arkobram Ivati Vataha. And so Shukadev Goswami says that when people properly glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or they simply hear about his power, the Lord personally enters into their hearts and he himself will clean every trace of misfortune. Just like a sun can remove all the darkness, and just like powerful wind can drive away the clouds. This is why we are hearing about the glories of Lord Ram. The other important thing that is given in Bhagavatam is this beautiful verse, in 12:50 of Srimad Bhagavatam. Tadeva ramyam ruchiram navam navam tadeva shashvam manaso maho sadvam tadeva shokar navasoshanam rinam yaruttama shloka yasho anugiyate. Here, Shukadev Goswami is telling Parikshit Maharaj, any words that describe the glories of the all-powerful and all-famous personality of Godhead, these words are considered to have three effects. One, hearing about Lord Ram is always attractive. Isn't it so? We have all been growing up in traditions where we have heard about Ramayana for years and years. But no matter how many times we hear about a pastime of Lord Ram, we are never tired because they are very attractive. And because they are attractive, they are relishable. We have taste for hearing them. And Navam Navam, they are very fresh. So many times we have heard them. Nobody is bored to hear about Lord Ram. Nobody is bored. And most important thing is, these words that describe Lord Ram, they are a perpetual festival. So whenever we go for festivals, we are thinking, what is the festival for? But Bhagavatam tells us these festivals of Lord Krishna, Lord Ram, they are actually festivals for the mind. They dry up all the oceans of miseries that we may have in our hearts and our mind. And this is the greatness of hearing the great pastimes of Lord Ram. So today, we want to concentrate on one aspect of Lord Ram, which is very important. And this aspect of the Lord is given very nicely in the, I think it is in the ninth chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 29 shloka. In 9th chapter, 29 shloka, Krishna declares to Arjuna a very important point. He says, Samoham sarva bhuteshu na me dvesho asti na priyaha ye bhajanti tumam bhaktya mayi te teshu chapi aham. So this is a very important verse in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna tells Arjuna that actually I envy no one and nor am I partial to anyone. So this is important quality of Krishna and Lord Ram. During the time when Lord Ram was here in Ramayana, you'll find that the Lord was very impartial to everyone. He did not take sides with anyone actually. Only because of his duty as a king did he have to vanquish Ravana. Otherwise, he did not want to, he did not have any case against Ravana. So actually, this is a very important point. Krishna, Lord Ram, he is equal to all. Anyone who renders service to him, right? Anyone who is not rendering service to him, actually Lord Ram is equal to everyone. Think about it. So many people outside of this hall do not even believe in God. And yet, Krishna and Lord Ram, they are supplying oxygen, food, they are giving them nice jobs. They don't believe in God, yet they are getting all the necessities of life. This proves to us that God is impartial by nature. But Krishna says in 9:29 very importantly, that whoever renders devotion to me, any service that is done in devotion, like all of you, you've all come together as service to Krishna. As you come together in service and you come together in devotion to Lord Ram, then such a person, Krishna declares, he is a friend. He is in me and I am also in him. So this is a very important point given to us by the pages of Bhagavad Gita. Lord Ram in Ramayana, he really displayed this very important point. He was the embodiment of what we call all the principles of Sanatana Dharma as well as Bhagavata Dharma. This is very important. So we will concentrate on one episode which showed us this great nature of Lord Ram, because it seems to be a contradiction. How can someone be equal to everyone but be partial to someone? How is that possible? But Lord Ram will show us in this pastime. This pastime actually will happen, just after Sita Mata has been kidnapped by Ravana. And after Sita Mata was kidnapped, And Lakshman and Lord Ram were looking around, they could not find Sita at all. And only Jatayu, the vulture, told them that Sita has been kidnapped by Ravana. So this is a very important point. So actually Ram was in a situation where he was trying to find out someone who would actually know where Ravana was situated. This is important point. So as Lord Ram and Lakshman were traveling through the forests, one time, they came across a great demon known as Kabanda. And this Kabanda demon was very powerful, but somehow or another Lord Ram actually destroyed the demon. And when Lord Ram destroyed and vanquished the demons, there was a curse that was lifted from the demon. And at that point of time, the demon actually came to his senses, and he told Lord Ram a very important point. He said, "My dear Lord, I have heard that there is a group of monkeys known as Vanaras. They are living in the Kishkinda mountains, near the Kishkinda kingdom, near the Rishimukha hills actually, where the great sage Matanga is actually staying. If you go to them, they have a king called Sugriva. And that king, I believe, has information on where Sita is actually and where to find Ravana." So when Lord Ram heard that, he and Lakshman started moving around, and they started trying to move towards the Rishimukha hills. So one day they came to the Rishimukha hills, and at that time, it was just during the springtime. Just as they were leaving for the Rishimukha hills, Ramayana tells us how Lord Ram was so much in separation from Mother Sita. During spring, everything that he saw in the forest reminded him of Mother Sita. And he was so much in separation from her. So eventually they came to the Rishimukha hills. And there, unknown to them, Sugriva was hiding in the caves with his great servant and of course the great devotee of the Lord, Hanumanji. And when actually Sugriva saw these two gentlemen, he did not know they were Ram and Lakshman. But he told Hanuman that two strangers have come today. I am afraid that they are actually friends of my brother. And who was the brother of Sugriva? Vali. Vali was a very powerful king of Kishkinda. He was much more powerful than Sugriva in terms of strength. And so Sugriva was very afraid of him for the reasons that I will tell you shortly. So Sugriva then told Hanuman, please go out and please try to find out what is the purpose for these two gentlemen to come. The way I see them, they are dressed like mendicants, but they are not mendicants. They are carrying bows and arrows, and their disposition looks very powerful and warrior-like. There must be a reason why they have come, and I'm fearful of them. So Hanuman went in the disguise of a mendicant. And when he went there, he arrived there and he was very polite to Ram and Lakshman. And he asked them, what is the purpose for you to be here? Let me know. And Ram and Lakshman said, oh, my dear sir, we're actually here because we want to find Sugriva. We have lost, Rama has lost, his beloved Sita. And so we want to try and find out who this person Ravana has kidnapped, but we don't know where he stays. But we heard from a demon Kabanda that actually someone known as Sugriva will actually know. Then Hanuman decided to show his real nature. And he said that I am the servant, the loyal servant of Sugriva. I and Sugriva were afraid that you were his enemies actually. But today from your noble bearings, we can come to know that actually you are very powerful and very great. Who are you actually? And then Lakshman said, he is none other than Lord Rama. He is the actual successor to the kingdom of Ayodhya, but we are now in exile. So then Hanuman said, please let me take you both to see Sugriva. And when Hanuman picked them up, he grew very large and he put Ram and Lakshman on his right and left shoulders. And he traveled very quickly into the caves where Sugriva was staying. Ramayana tells us that when Sugriva saw Lord Ram, his heart actually melted in friendship. And so they built a fire, a yajna, and they circumambulated the fire and they declared friendship to each other actually. And Sugriva said something very beautiful to Lord Ram. He said, my dear Ram, from today your happiness will be my happiness and your sorrow will be my sorrow. This is a very nice way, of extending himself to Lord Ram. And Lord Ram then said something very nice, that Sugriva, from today, whoever is your enemy becomes my enemy, and whoever is your friend will also become my friend. This is the greatness of Lord Ram, that once you are allied in friendship with him, then you will never lose a friend, and you can never have a better friend than Lord Ram. So then Lord Ram said, I'm looking at you, Sugriva. You look like you are in anxiety. Hanumanji said that you are a prince or a king, but where is your kingdom? Just like me, where is your kingdom? And Sugriva then told him the story of why he was sitting in Rishimukha hills. He said, my dear Lord Ram, actually, I am the brother of a great powerful character known as Vali. And Vali is so powerful, that he is actually now the king of Kishkinda. A long time ago, Vali and I were very close as brothers. And one day, a great demon known as Mayavi, he is the son of Mayadanava, he came and called out Vali for a fight. Vali, seeing that this demon was going to torment him, he came out and he chased Mayavi. I also came out to assist my brother, and we chased the demon into a dark cave. There, Mayavi went into the cave, and Vali told me, you stay outside and stay guard. I will go inside and kill this demon. But 1 year passed, Prabhus and Matajis, 1 year. And Sugriva waited and waited and waited for his brother, but he could not come. He didn't come out. At the stroke of 1 year, he heard from the cave a very, very agonizing sound of someone being killed. He saw blood, and foam coming out of the cave. And at that point of time, he feared the worst. He thought that Vali, his brother, had been conquered and killed by the demon Mayavi. In order to make sure that Mayavi will not escape and torment the kingdom of Kishkinda, Sugriva took a big rock and he closed the cave. He went back and told everyone, and they crowned him as the king of Kishkinda. So even though Sugriva became the king, he was always feeling very sad that where is Vali? And he lamented for the death of his brother. But actually, that was not true. Vali had killed Mayavi, and he was coming back when he saw the entrance to the cave was closed with a rock. In his mind, Vali thought that Sugriva had betrayed him, and he became very angry. With his great strength, he pushed out the rock, and he came out and went to the kingdom. And in front of all the assembly, he chided and criticized, and he was very, very unhappy with Sugriva. Sugriva actually came down from his kingdom, and he gave Vali the crown, and he told him, you please be whoever you want to be. You be the king, because I'm only a temporary king. But Vali said, not only will I become king, but I will banish you now from the kingdom of Kishkinda forever. Take whoever who's loyal to you. And after that, never come back here. And Vali did one thing very bad. He not only took all the property belonging to Sugriva, but he also took Sugriva's wife, Rama, and he took her for his wife. And that is not the principle of our dharma, to take someone else and to own them. In that way, Vali's behavior was no better than Ravana. Just like Ravana had taken Sita, even though he had Mandodari, in the same way Vali had taken Rama when he already had his chaste wife known as Tara, but he did not care. So Sugriva was not only humiliated, but very pained to see that another man had taken his wife. So then he stopped and he told Lord Ram, this is my story. And now I want to go back and claim back my wife and claim back the kingdom, because Vali is not fit to be a king because of his behavior. Rama told him that because what you have said is correct. And as a king, it is my duty to uphold the principles of dharma. No man has the right to take another man's wife as his and enjoy her. This is not the principle of Krishna consciousness. And so Lord Ram said something very nice to Sugriva. He said, my dear Sugriva, it is stated in our Shastras that service is the real fruit of friendship. What a nice point, huh, Prabhus, Matajis? It is something that we should think about in our yatras. If we really claim that we are friends, if each one of us sitting next to each other, and I see all of you sitting with each other, if we really claim to be friends, what does it mean to be friends in Krishna consciousness? Lord Ram is teaching us in Ramayana that the fruit of friendship in God consciousness and Krishna consciousness is actually service to each other. When we serve each other in Krishna consciousness, we will never fight. When we put Krishna in the center, whatever differences we have, somehow or another, Krishna and Lord Ram, they can adjust it actually. So this is how we should relate in friendship. Another very important point that is given here is now Lord Ram was declaring that he will protect Sugriva and he will actually help him to vanquish Bali. This is a promise that Lord Ram made in Ramayana. And Lord Ram makes a very famous, this promise is very famous because it is actually stated in the Yuddha Kanda. And Srila Prabhupada actually spoke about this promise very often. Sakrit eva prapanno yas, tavas mritti cha yachate, abhayam sarvada tasmai, dada mritta eta vratam mama. This is very important. Dadami eta vratam mama. What does Lord Ram say here? Lord Ram told Sugriva, if anyone surrenders unto me sincerely, this is a very important word. If we want to surrender, our surrender must be sincere. It must be from the heart, not that we are just surrendering as a formality. So Lord Ram says, anyone who surrenders to me sincerely, saying, my Lord, from this day I am fully surrendered to you, I always will give him my protection. That is my vow. Dadami eta vratam mama. This is what Lord Ram declared to Sugriva. And he will now prove this very important point. Sugriva now described, how actually, now that Sugriva heard this, he became very encouraged. Then he said to Lord Ram, my dear Lord, you are so kind to help me, but how can I help you? This is very important in Vaishnava relationships. In Vaishnava relationships, we do not only take, we should also give. There will always be reciprocation. It cannot be that as a friend, you must always give me something. Every time I'm asking you for something. But do we think about what others need also? We should be sensitive to what our friends actually need. More than our needs, we should be sensitive to their needs actually. So Sugriva was a good friend. He said, my dear Ram, you tell me now what you want. And Lord Ram then told him that I am bereft of pain. I am bereft of Sita. And I want to know whether you have found something about Sita. And Sugriva said, yes, because as we were sitting down together, we saw Ravana actually flying by and we saw him holding Sita. And Sita was shouting and shouting and shouting. And she was screaming and shouting for help. And then we suddenly saw from the sky an upper garment and some jewels, were falling down actually. So we picked it up and let me go into the cave. So Sugriva went into the cave and he took a piece of cloth. He opened it. And Lord Ram, when he saw that, he became so pained in separation that he almost fainted. He turned to Lakshman and said, my dear Lakshman, look at this jewelry. Does it not belong to Sita? Look at the ankle bells. Do they not belong to her ankles? Look at this cloth, her upper garment. Isn't this her upper garment? You know what Lakshman says? Very interesting. Lakshman says, my dear Lord, after Sita Mata got married to you, in service of her, I have never glanced at her face. I only look at her lotus feet when I'm speaking to her. So I cannot identify the upper garment, but I can identify the ankle bells as belonging to her. And therefore, this must be from Sita. And therefore, Sugriva then told Lord Ram, because you are ready now to vanquish Vali, we are ready now to help you find Sita. We will help you by finding Ravana, and we will locate where Ravana is. And we are prepared to send a huge army of Vanaras because we are now allies and we are friends. So Rama said, thank you very much, Sugriva. But now I must do one thing as a friend. I will help you to vanquish Vali. Tell me what can I do and how can I defeat this Vali? Sugriva said, this is where I have some doubt, Lord Ram. And Ram said, why? Why are you having doubts? And he said, Vali is so powerful. I don't think you can defeat him. And Lakshman said, do not doubt, my Lord. Do you really think he's not powerful? Give us some test of strength and Lord Ram will show how strong he is. So Sugriva was thinking and he said, one time Vali fought a very powerful demon known as Dundubi. He came in the form of a buffalo. And after a great fight, Vali actually, he actually picked him up by his horns. He whirled him in the sky and he threw him very, very, very far. Very, very far. In fact, he threw him so far that he crossed over this Matanga Rishi's ashram, and some drops of the demon fell onto the Rishi's ashram. And the Rishi cursed Vali that because you have actually, you have contaminated my ashram, I curse you that if you come within a few kilometers of this ashram, you will die. And that is why Vali did not come into the Rishi Mukha hills where the ashram was. So now Sugriva said, if you can pick up the skeleton of Dundubi, which is here now, if you can pick it up and if you can hurl it 4 miles away, then I will think you are strong enough. Because remember, Dundubi was at that time not a skeleton. But even then, Vali had actually kicked it and it went 400 bow lengths away. So if Lord Ram can actually throw away the skeleton 4 miles, I think he would be very powerful. But I have one more condition for him. Vali was so powerful that he would take a bow and arrow, and with his arrow, he could pierce 7 large trees with 7 arrows. It is not easy to pierce a tree with an arrow. You can pierce it a little bit, but to let the arrow pass through the tree, that is almost impossible for anyone. Impossible. So Vali was so powerful, 7 arrows he shot in quick succession, and 7 arrows could find their mark through each tree actually. So now Sugriva threw the challenge to Lord Ram and told him, can you do this? Lord Ram came to the skeleton of Dundubi and he kicked the skeleton just with his big toe actually. And it went 80 miles away, not 4 miles, but 80 miles away. So Lakshman was actually smiling. Then Lord Ram took a bow and he took one of his very powerful arrows. He took it and aimed at one of the trees. And all these trees, they were all aligned. And with one arrow, he shot that one arrow. And Ramayana tells us, as he pulled the string to the arrow, the earth began to shudder. That was how powerful Lord Ram's arrow and bow were. And when he shot that arrow, the arrow pierced all 7 trees. Not only did it pierce through the trees, it entered the earth after piercing the trees, went down to the bottom of this material universe. And 1 hour later, it came out from earth and it entered into the quiver of Lord Ram. Nobody can do that except the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sugriva said, I am surrendered to you. I am very convinced now that you are more powerful than Vali. Tell me what is your plan? And so Ram told him, this is the plan. You go now back to Kishkinda and you challenge Vali to come out. When he comes out, you and him will fight. I will be behind a tree with my arrow and my bow. And at the appropriate time, I will shoot the arrow that will kill him. So Sugriva thought, it's a good plan. Let me go. So Sugriva went and challenged Vali. When Vali heard his brother challenging him, he thought to himself, what an impudent, what a useless brother. Today I will finish him. And Vali came out with his mace, and Sugriva with his mace started fighting. It was a really strong battle. For a while it seemed even, Ramayana tells us. But after a while, Sugriva began to lose his stamina and Vali began to gain ground. But Sugriva was waiting. When is Lord Ram going to shoot the arrow? No arrow came. And Sugriva was beaten up. He had blood coming from his mouth. He was bruised. And he decided, Lord Ram has abandoned me today. He said so many nice things about me as a friend. But now when it came to killing Vali, he has actually abandoned me. So what did he do? He ran away into the forest of Rishimukha. Vali chased him. But in the end, he decided, I cannot go into Rishimukha. And he came back. So Sugriva came back to see Lord Ram. And he was very angry. He said, my dear Lord, why? Why did you put me into a fight with Vali when you were not certain about killing him? You cannot do that to me. Be honest with me. Friends means we should be straightforward with each other. Lord Ram smiled at him and said, my dear friend, it is not that I was not ready to kill Vali. But when you two were fighting, you look so alike that I could not tell who is Vali and who is Sugriva. And how can I kill my friend wrongly? I cannot do that. So I just waited. I'm very sorry you got beaten up. But this time do one thing. Go to Lakshman, seek his blessings and get his garland. When you get that garland from him and you fight, I will know who you are by your garland. So at that point of time, Sugriva then said, all right. He went to Lakshman and he bowed and Lakshman blessed him this time. He took the garland and then he went. Our acharyas tell us that this episode of Sugriva taking blessings from Lakshman is very important. In the first time when he was fighting with Vali, he did not take the blessings of anyone. He just went to fight. Lakshman is none different from Lord Balaram. And Lord Balaram is the original Adi Guru. He is the first spiritual master for all of us. Our Guru Parampara is coming from Lord Balaram. Without his mercy, without taking his shelter, we cannot be successful in any spiritual or any endeavor in this world. That is why in the first time when Sugriva was fighting, he was relying on his own strength and therefore he was defeated. We cannot even get the mercy of Lord Ram without getting the mercy of our spiritual master and Lakshman. And that's why Lord Ram put forward this very important principle in this section of Ramayana. And so then Lakshman gave him the blessings as a spiritual master will. And he put the garland on him. And with that garland, Sugriva became victorious. Because at that point of time, when he went again outside and he challenged, Vali, come out, let me fight with you again. And at that point of time, Vali decided, this time I will smash you. Before you run away, I will kill you. And Vali came out. As he was coming out, his wife, Tara, she told Vali, my lord, I have a bad feeling about this. Please don't go. Please don't go. I have heard that Sugriva is not alone. Think about it, my lord. He just got beaten up by you. How can he come back so fast to speak to you and challenge you? Someone or something must be behind him. I have heard that Rama and Lakshman, two very powerful beings, and who is actually the king and the rightful heir of the kingdom of Ayodhya, he is here and he is supporting Sugriva. My lord, please don't go. But, Ramayana tells us Vali's destiny was now against him. And therefore, when our destiny is against us, even good people telling us good things, we don't listen. And so he refused to listen to his wife. He said, my gentle Tara, I will come back after smashing my brother and I will teach him a good lesson. As for Ram, I have no fight with him. I have heard he's a very great and powerful Kshatriya. And a Kshatriya will never interfere with another fight. So I'm very sure that he will not interfere here. Don't worry. And so Vali went out with his mace. When he went out with his mace, he was very powerful. And he began to fight with Sugriva. And as they fought, Sugriva at that point realized that I can't take it anymore. So with one hand, he put his hand up. But there was no need for that. Because Lord Ram was hidden behind the tree. And just like a hunter shoots a powerful arrow to kill an animal, Lord Ram released a very powerful arrow, like lightning. It went straight into the heart of Vali and it pierced his chest. Vali immediately fell down. He had a gold chain that was given to him by Indra. It was supposed to make him almost invincible. Even though Lord Ram's arrow was so powerful that Vali should have been killed immediately, Ramayana tells us that because Vali had the chain of Indra and because he was a very powerful king, he did not give up his life so easily, but he lay on the battlefield with Lord Ram's arrow in his chest. Lord Ram and Lakshman now walked up to Vali and they looked at him in a very serious manner. You know what Vali did? He began to chastise Lord Rama. He was very harsh. He said, Lord Rama, shame on you. I have heard that you are a righteous hero and a king, devoted to dharma and very compassionate and very equal. Instead, you are a vile wretch. You have actually shown that your virtues are an external show. And your sinful action today of killing me has betrayed your sinful heart. I was fighting with Sugriva. It was none of your business. Why is it that you interfered? A king should never interfere in another fight. How can someone claiming to be a Kshatriya kill someone who is engaged in fighting another? It is not the right principle. I challenge you to justify me. And like a shameless person, you were hiding behind a tree and shooting an arrow at me. You were not even in plain sight. Tell me now, Lord Ram, how can you justify my killing? And now Lord Ram speaks very powerfully in this episode with Vali. In a very sober and deep tone, the Lord said, your accusations, Vali, show that you are really ignorant of true morality and true dharma. Let me tell you one thing. By nature, monkeys are very frivolous because of their uncontrollable mind. And you have just proven that. Your advisors and you do not understand the higher principles of dharma. Do you know, Vali, that this whole earth is actually ruled by the Ishvaku dynasty? In terms of structure of ruling, this entire earth is ruled by the Ishvaku dynasty, from which I am coming from. We have complete authority over all men and all animals. And any man or animal who does injustice to another, we have the right to record punishment. We have the right to award reward. This is the authority that I carry with me. Whether I'm in exile or not, I cannot turn a blind eye to the right principles. And this is a very important point for all of us as devotees. Being a devotee means that we should be able to stand up for the principles of Bhagavad Gita and for the principles of Shastra. It doesn't mean that we just look like devotees, but we don't behave like devotees. This is a very important thing. Second point Lord Ram brought up. You took Rama, who was actually the wife of Sugriva here, as your wife. You enjoyed her against her will, and therefore you conducted an illicit connection with her. It is for this sinful act alone that you deserve to die at my hands. And this is the second point that we must remember. That is why Srila Prabhupada gave us the 4 regulative principles. No meat eating, no illicit connections, no gambling, no intoxication. These illicit connections, the moment we establish them, that day, our spiritual life, we become bankrupt actually. We should admit it to ourselves. And this is why Lord Ram was telling Vali that even though you speak so greatly of virtue, you are actually not virtuous at all because you are keeping another man's wife. And how dare you do that? Last point Lord Ram brings up. It is accepted in practice that while hunting, a Kshatriya can release his arrow at inattentive animals which are causing harm to others. And he can do that from a hidden position. Vali, your behavior has proven that you are not a great king of Kishkinda. Your behavior has proven that you are actually an animal. I am not judging you based on your external appearance as a Vanara. This is very important for us. Lord Ram was not judging Vali by his external appearance. Lord Ram says in Ramayana that it is not your body, it is not your animal body that is being judged, but it is your animal consciousness that is being punished. So we may look like devotees, Prabhus and Matajis, but if our behavior is like animal, then that consciousness is what actually Krishna sees. Krishna doesn't see our externalities. Krishna sees our consciousness. And now Lord Ram becomes very compassionate. If after all that I've told you, Vali, if you still think that I have wronged you, then I'm prepared to give up my life right now. See the virtue of Lord Ram. Even though he was actually executing Vali according to dharmic principles, still he said, if you consider me not right, if you don't accept what I say, all right, I am ready to give up my life as a Kshatriya for having wronged you. Now, what did Vali do? Vali now became enlightened. This is why we are doing this Ram Navami program. All the time when Lord Ram was speaking to Vali, what was Lord Ram doing? He was giving Vali his sadhu sangha. He was giving Vali his association. He was purifying the heart of Vali. And so then Vali became very, very, very happy. In fact, he became so exalted, he became so peaceful that Lord Ram had chastised him, that he became ashamed, Ramayana tells us, for his abominable actions. And he said, "What you say, Lord Ram, is true. I only dared to denounce you because I was overly proud, ignorant of my own sins. My dear Ram, I implore you to give me protection today. And I implore you to give protection to my son, Angada." And Vali called Angada, and told him to bow before Lord Ram. "My dear Ram," Vali said, "please excuse my harsh words." And then he turned to Angada and he said, "My dear son, now I'm going to depart. Always remain obedient to Sugriva. Always act with due consideration and always accept, right, the ruling of Sugriva. Please be equipoised in your mind. Avoid excessive attachment. Do not hate anyone and do not become attached to anyone, because this attachment leads us to pain." Vali was now telling Angada that by throwing out Sugriva and taking his wife, taking his property, Vali had become too proud. When we take others' property that doesn't belong to us, we will never be happy. Instead of living in this world in the concept of ownership, we should live in this world by the concept of service. This is very important. And looking then and fixing his eyes on the beautiful form of Vali, of Lord Ram, the great King Vali then left his body. This is the great episode of Ramayana. What can we learn from this wonderful episode? What was the difference between Vali and Ravana? Some people ask, Ravana and Vali did the same thing. They both took other men's wives and they tried to enjoy them. But the difference between Ravana and Vali is that Vali was actually cleansed of his ignorance and his sin by Lord Ram. And also because when Lord Ram spoke words of Shastra, Vali actually obeyed them. He was prepared to obey them. And why was he prepared to obey them? Because Ramayana said when Lord Ram shot that arrow, the arrow of Lord Ram is non-different from Lord Ram. And when that arrow pierced and touched the heart of Vali, Vali's heart was cleared of all sinful activities. This is the mercy of Lord Ram. Lord Ram appeared to be killing Vali, but he was purifying him. And now, just before Vali left the world, he says something very nice. "My dear Lord, lives I may have, and they are many, but this one death like this I will never get again. So thank you for this benediction. To die in your presence is the greatest fortune and the greatest perfection of my life." And so Vali then left his body glorifying Lord Ram. And in that way, all traces of misfortune was completely gone. Ravana never had that mood to give up and fall at the lotus feet of Lord Ram. And don't forget what Lord Ram had said, Sakrit eva prapannoyas. Anyone who turns to Lord Ram and says, "My Lord, I am yours." At the end of his life, Vali came to his senses and he surrendered himself to the Lord. And because he did that, not only in this episode did Rama protect Sugriva, but we must not forget that Rama also protected his brother Vali. He may have appeared to have killed him, but he protected his consciousness. And that is the greatest protection that Lord Ram gives us on Ram Navami, the protection of our consciousness. So we pray today to Lord Ram that Ram Navami should be very important to us, not because we are just coming for a festival, but because we are praying to Krishna and Lord Ram that whatever happens in our life, let our consciousness always be fixed at his lotus feet. Prabhus and Matajis, we will always endure very difficult things in life. It is part of this world. Sometimes our health will not be good. Sometimes people may not be nice. Sometimes our own family may give us difficulty. Sometimes we are also giving people difficulty. But our prayer to Krishna, our prayer to Lord Ram, Tasmat Ekena Manasa, it should be one single prayer. And that prayer is, "My dear Lord, I am fully surrendered to you. And please give me protection." But the protection is not protection of body. Body anyway has to go. Krishna will always protect our body as a byproduct. But we pray for the protection of our consciousness. So this episode appeared as if Lord Ram was killing Vali. but actually Lord Ram was protecting Bali. We must change our ideas of protection, because how Lord protects us is very different from what we think is protection. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jai Sri Sri Ramayana ki. Rama means Rama and Ayana means journey. Ramayana actually is the journey of Lord Ram. And by hearing about Lord Ram and his glories, our spiritual journey also will begin. I wish all of you in Minneapolis a very blissful Ram Navami.